Welcome back, guys. We are going to continue with our e captures d5 mainline, whereupon we look at that after e4, queen to e2, knight to f6, what to do against the move knight to c3 in my last episode, whereupon in this one we are going to consider one of the most critical response, namely d3, which is of course recommended in many books and videos. Now the key thing you have to remember here that whenever white plays d3, we are going to respond with queen captures d5, and white has two major choices. Now knight b to d2 is by far the most critical response. But first, let's look at why knight to c3 is such a bad move in this position. Because after this, we can simply respond with bishop to b4, pinning down the knight. And after bishop to d2 unpinning, we can set up a crafty trick here, starting with bishop captures c3, bishop captures c3, and now castle on the king side. It's amazing that how many people has fallen into this in my blitz games. As you can see from here that there are more than 2400 plus games continue with bishop captures f6, which is in fact a great time disaster because black has this cunning in between move. Pawn captures f3, attacking the queen. Queen captures f3. Now we exchange the queen, and I really don't want to capture this bishop immediately. Rather, I prefer rook to e8 check. The point is, after king to d2, now we are going to take this bishop. When white give this check, you can see that king do not need to go to the h8 square. Instead, f8 is the ideal square. And by end of the sequence, if you count the material, black is a clear piece up. So this is one of the crafty trick exist if your opponent continue with bishop captures f6. Well, what happens if white spot this and continue with d captures e4? And against this, my recommendation is very simple. You just take this pawn with your knight. And now the only move which keeps white in the game is rook to d1, attacking the queen, which is indeed supporting this e4 knight. But tactics favors black here, and after the following forcing sequence, knight captures c3, rook captures d5, knight captures e2, bishop captures e2. Now you play bishop to e6, attacking the rook. And when rook goes anywhere, let's say rook to d2, we can continue with knight to c6. And at the end of the sequence, yes, indeed, we have equal material, but black is steaming ahead in terms of piece development, and this line is slightly favoring the black camp. So this is all you need to know if your opponent continue with knight to c3. Well, we come to most important junction, and that is what happens if your opponent continue with knight b to d2. But before we look at it, the small point, in case if white takes on e4, I recommend you straightforwardly capture with the queen, and as the queen are going to be exchanged, this position will remain equal, and whoever play better might get the winning chances. So let's check out what we are going to do against the most critical response, namely knight b to d2. So white is attacking 3 times on the pawn, and now it is ill-advised to hold on to this pawn. So I propose you continue with knight to c6. And now white has 2 major choices, and amongst them, d captures e4 is the main line. However, we should also know what to do against the move knight captures e4. Okay, white is ready to give us discover check, so black should block it with the bishop. And white will be delighted. As you can see from the database, majority of the games continue with knight captures f6, pawn captures f6, destroying the black pawn structure on the king side. And now, what can be more natural than queen to e4, so that if black exchange the queen, then white has a completely winning endgame. Well, it is not so simple, as black has this very cunning check in the mix. And the big point is, after bishop to d2, we are going to play queen to b6, attacking the weak b2 pawn. Again, if you look at the database, as I have highlighted over here, castle as well as bishop to c3 are the popular choices. And let's see what we are going to do about them. The first move I want to consider is castle, whereupon black can throw this nasty surprise, a move which has never been played, that is queen to a6. And surprisingly, this move turns out very well for the black. We are already attacking on a2, and if you think that, well, it's not a big deal, I can always play a3, right? Guess what? This is exactly black wants, as black has this nice tactic in the picture. Bishop captures a3, what a move! So the obvious thing is, if white foolishly take this bishop, then after queen takes, we have prettiest mate on the board with the following sequence: king to b1, queen check, king to c1, and queen to a1 decide the game. So capturing the bishop is right out of the equation. The more natural move here is bishop to c3, defending the pawn as well as attacking on f6. But now black can calmly retrieve back the bishop on the e7 square. And not only black regain his material, but he has a simple plan, namely castle on the queen side and then try to launch attack on the white king. I like to show you my recent game in this line where my opponent continued with bishop to e2. I castle on the queen side, and now he played the most obvious choice, namely d4, trying to get a piece. Okay, I respond with queen to a4, pinning down that pawn. So my opponent tried to protect his queen with rook h to e1, but I think this is too little too slow. Black responded with f5, and after queen to e3, the winning shot of the game, knight to b4. Well, my opponent really doesn't like that knight, so he literally chopped it off. But this turned out as a big time disaster, as after simple continuation, queen check, king to d2, bishop to b4 check. And unfortunately for my opponent, he has no way to hide, as after c3, I simply checkmate him with queen captures b2, king to d3, and now queen captures c3, deliver the knockout punch. So I think this queen a6 novelty can literally shock your opponent and you get some fast victory in this variation. Okay, the second and the most popular choice here is bishop to c3, which again looks very natural, as white is not only defending on b2 but also attacking on f6. But unfortunately for white, black has a very strong move here, that is bishop to b4. Now if white captures this bishop, then knight captures b4 is a very strong reply. So accordingly, the base sequence goes as follows: bishop to e2. Now we chop on c3, and after pawn takes, black can simply respond with queen to a5, trying to gobble up the c3 pawn, which No wonder white can hardly defend it. So after white castles, we take on c3, and as you can see, I have highlighted over here, black has a very simple plan, namely castle, put the rook on the g file, and if possible in some line we can chop on c2 as well. All in all, I think practically speaking, this is good position to play as a black camp. So now we come to the most important junction of the whole elephant gambit complex. As almost all the videos and books recommend here, d captures e4. Afterwards, if you check the database, queen to h5 is exclusively played. But personally, I don't think this line is working for black, and white obviously get a nagging edge in this variation. So instead of this, I am going to propose my own invention in this line, starting with queen to e6. The point is, we want to quickly castle on the queen side, and because white has played the move queen to e2 and knight to d2, he has somewhere down the line slowed down his complete piece development. So we are going to take benefit out of it. If your opponent plays c3, then my recommendation is you continue with bishop to c5. However, if you check the database, almost majority of the games continue with queen to c4, which is again looks very natural. White is trying to exchange the queen as he is a pawn up, and rightly enough, we are going to decline it with this very nice move, which is in fact hardly played in few games, and that is queen to g4. Here it doesn't matter whether white continue with e5 or h3, black can set up a nasty piece sacrifice line which give him a completely winning edge. So by far engine's top choice is h3, and after our queen to g6, now white plays e5 attacking the knight. Of course, if black has to move that knight, then white position is extremely good. But here I propose a nice piece sacrifice line starting with bishop to e6, which at first sight looks very funny because white can play the move queen to b5 attacking two soft spots. But you know what, we just go for it, starting with castle on the queen side, sacking the whole knight, and the big point is after pawn takes f6. You might think, hang on, you lost whole piece for no compensation, right? Well, that's not the case here, because black has a stunning reply here, queen to c2, and now surprisingly black has a very cunning idea, that is rook to d5 and trapping down the white sweetie. Isn't that amazing? Well, recently I got this position against a FIDE master, and I think this game will give you a model illustration how dangerous this line is for the white. Well, my opponent continued with f captures g7, and after bishop captures g7, he simply responded with bishop to e2, trying to castle on the king side. Okay, as I have highlighted earlier, I continue with rook to d5, attacking the queen. And my opponent calmly played queen to c4, going for the exchange. But what has been missed out is, black has this nice move, rook captures d2, a discover attack as well as nabbing the knight. So white response is force. He has to exchange this queen. And indeed after this, if you count the material, it is balanced. But in terms of piece development, black is way ahead. And in fact, I did cash in based on this factor. After white's bishop to d1, I decided to simply sack an exchange with rook captures b2, bishop captures b2, bishop captures b2, rook to b1. And now my big point is, at the end of the sequence, I want to deliver this check so that wherever the king goes, I can nab an extra pawn on a2. And if you count the material, yes, indeed, black is an exchange down, but it takes ages for this white rook to come out. And the most important factor is I have 3 connected pass pawn, which can create a great headache for the white camp in upcoming endgame. All in all, I think it is only black who can have all kind of fun from this position. That's it guys. I hope with this mini lecture, now you get all the information to play against the move d3. Remember at this point, it doesn't matter however white get extra pawn with either d captures e4 or knight captures e4. As I have shown in this video, black is full equipped with the tactical resources, and any of your human opponent can get outplayed easily if he does not play accurately from the given position. Well, thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment, and I will meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care.